My name is Brent Stirton. I'm a South African photographer. I work for Getty Images for the assignment division. These days I do most of my work for National Geographic and for Newsweek and for the New York Times magazine. Amongst other things, I work for the Global Fund, for the Global Business Coalition. I work for the World Economic Forum and for the Clinton Foundation and the Nike Foundation. What we did was initially go to the Democratic Republic of Congo for Newsweek magazine to investigate the lives of 100-odd rangers who work in the eastern sector of Virunga National Park in eastern Congo, where the gorilla sector is. Over the last 15 years, 110 of them have died in the course of performing their duties, and a great deal of that's been unpaid because of the massive conflict in that region. You know, we're talking 5.4 million dead since 1996. It's a hell of a job. 50 rangers had been recently selected for Special Forces training in South Africa, and the idea was that myself and the writer Scott Johnson, who is the bureau chief for Africa for Newsweek, he and I were going to go into the bush with these guys straight after they'd come back from their training, in the hopes that we would have clashes with paramilitary groups, and that would allow us to demonstrate the courage of these men and what it took to do this job. 3 days into that assignment, we were pretty deep into the forest, and you know, this is a place which has two rebel armies. It has any number of paramilitary groups, 11 at last count. And it's all happening in Africa's first national park, which is arguably the most unique biosphere in the world. So, you know, a complicated place to say the least. 3 days into it, very late in the afternoon, raining and just general nastiness, we got word that a gorilla had been killed. We trekked for 4 hours through the jungle and eventually arrived at a place where we discovered not one but 3 dead females, one of which had been burnt badly, all 3 of which had been assassinated, one of them heavily pregnant, and one that we knew had a child. We then waited until very early the next morning when we went back into this region and then found a dead silverback. It's a 530-kilo animal. There's only a tiny number of these animals. These animals were assassinated. You know, they were shot 5 or 6 times each. One of them was partially burnt in an act of apparent sadism. And it was very difficult to work out what was going on. Newsweek first published the story in August, and very shortly after that, National Geographic contacted me and said, we want you to go back. At the time, war was raging in that sector, and no journalist was able to go into that place at all. And so myself and the writer Mark Jenkins for National Geographic, we planned, and we stayed in contact with people in that region for a couple of months, waiting for the first opportunity to go back in so we could investigate what had happened. Very early in January 2008, a peace treaty was signed between the rebel CNDP movement under General Laurent Nkunda and the Congolese army. And so that meant that for the first time there was a possible, okay, we can get in there. And, you know, a number of conservation groups said, no, we can't do that. But we managed to find a way, and myself and Mark went in there and went into the gorilla sector and met with the rebels and, you know, conducted an investigation with the help of the Congolese Conservation Authority and outside resources. And in the course of this investigation, we discovered that the charcoal industry in Virunga National Park, which is an industry, you know, this is a very impoverished region, and this industry is worth $30 million a year. Unfortunately, charcoal requires hardwood. The only source of hardwood is in Virunga National Park. So what happened was the charcoal industry killed these gorillas to make a power statement against the conservation movement, to say that we will do whatever we want, do not try to stop our industry in the park. What this picture is about, a good friend paying his last respects to someone who's just been killed in the park. Unfortunately, a Congolese army soldier was illegally inside the park and went on a bit of a killing spree, tried to take a motorbike away from a doctor who was passing through the park. The doctor refused, shot him 5 times in the chest. The very next person to come on that scene and see what was happening was one of the park rangers, who obviously arrived to find out what was going on, and was then shot himself in the chest by a Congolese soldier who had gone AWOL from his base. In the course of this rampage, killed another 5 people. So I guess for me, what this picture illustrates is really the level of commitment of these rangers, and the man on the bed is in fact the best friend of this guy. When I was in the room, this gentleman who's sitting down arrived and sat down on the bed in disbelief. 2 hours previously, they'd been talking and, they just separated briefly and this incident happened. But this incident is symptomatic of the kind of risks that these rangers are facing every day in the course of their conservation duties. In this picture, the woman's being arrested and is begging to be released. She actually thinks that she's going to be shot. That's what's happening here. That's why she's so desperate. Obviously, the rangers don't shoot these people. What they do is arrest them, hold them for a couple of days and try to re-educate them as to why there's pressure on them not to be in the park, not to be involved in this charcoal industry. She has no economic opportunities whatsoever, so she becomes an employee for the illegal charcoal industry. They go far into Virunga National Park, into the bush, and they manufacture this charcoal by burning down these trees illegally and destroying habitats. They then carry this charcoal tremendous distances back to the main road and onto the market where the profit making occurs. So, as you can imagine, it's a very difficult situation for everyone because these people have nothing, and the rangers are the same people. They also have nothing, but they have to make a choice as to whether it's going to be the park or whether it's going to be the people. And ultimately, they choose the park because, for a whole bunch of reasons, that makes the most sense. And obviously for them as conservationists, the park is first, and it's kind of like if you would imagine a bunch of red ants over a leafy mound, as it were. That mound is gone within half an hour, and that's exactly what would happen if these refugees were to be allowed to strip the park. Within a 2-year period, the world's most unique biosphere would be gone. This image has been seen a lot, it's been published a great deal. I guess what I hope for with this image is that it's a genuine crossover image. It talks not only about conservation issues, it also talks about conflict issues. This animal on this stretcher, this silverback that you're looking at, it's not like there's 600 of these. There might be 40. That's it. It's not unrealistic to imagine no more mountain gorillas. That what we're seeing here is the beginning of a slide. So I guess, for me, this picture represents the fact that all our, current human dramas are interrelated, interconnected. And as journalists, I want us to pay more attention to those lateral connections. These images allow us to talk about the war. They allow us to talk about the humanity. They allow us to talk about so many things which allow us to find new ways to care about old issues. And we need that. We live in a time of huge multimedia stimulus. And as a result of that stimulus, people only have 30 seconds for you. So you need to find new ways to talk about old issues. And if you're not doing that, you're not really doing your job.